Greetings, everyone. This is Kalei Ross with In Pursuit of Purity. It is my desire to learn as much as I can about chocolate and the chocolate making industry. I would love to share with you what I learn, so I hope you enjoy these videos. Well, greetings, everyone. This is Kalei Ross with In Pursuit of Purity. And this morning, I am traveling over the Columbia River to my neighbor state, Portland, Oregon, to visit with Christine Azar, who is the chocolatier and the founder of Azar Indulgences there in Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Christine.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Absolutely.
I do have a mask because I am at my shop. I feel like I should explain that, but I am at the store, so I have to make sure that I keep my mask on.
This is a great opportunity for us to see Christine in action. We might actually get to see her interface with some of her customers that come through the shop. So this is really great.
Yes, due to some staffing issues, and hopefully we'll see. I mean, Monday mornings are sometimes a little bit slower going, but we'll see kind of how it goes. And I appreciate you being flexible with this.
Sure. It's like us being at your place, so this is all good.
Basically, yes.
One of the things I wanted to talk about that perhaps, for people that are not familiar with your shop, your shop is rooted in some pretty deep-rooted familial traditions and history. Could you share that? Talk about your family traditions related to chocolate and what makes them so special to you.
Yes. So I started my company almost 6 years ago, and I work with my uncle who is in Beirut in Lebanon, and he is a chocolatier. He, had a patisserie, which would specialize in pastries and chocolates and bread and things like that. He and our great uncle started it together. And when our great uncle passed away, he sold that business and was subsequently recruited by the company that we work with now. And we work with the fourth or fifth generation great grandson of the original founders of the company. It's a family owned business. They have been in business since the late 1800s. They started out making like fruits and dates and things like that. And then in the early 1900s, they traveled to Paris for the Salon du Chocolat. And they didn't participate, but they kind of, looked and saw, just basically familiarized themselves with the process. And then a few years later went back and they beat out a lot of the chocolatiers that were there. And so they've had a little over 100 years to perfect the craft. The fun part for me, and having my uncle there is that we get to, if I see things that they're doing, and let's say, for example, it's in milk chocolate, and I feel that my customers here would benefit from it being dark chocolate or something that I've had people ask in dark chocolate, then I have that conversation and then we create it, and then I get to see people's reaction to it. Mm-hmm. Like we have one piece, it's the berry cheesecake, which we've always had. At the beginning, we had in milk chocolate and in white chocolate. And I remember one of my customers, he said, if you make this in dark chocolate, you'll see me every week. And I was like, well, I already see you every week, but I'll be happy to kind of see what we can do. And we did. We made it into the dark. So now we have all three. And the dark chocolate is by far the most popular. So it's fun conversations like that. And then you end up with like a new top seller or something that you can kind of present that other people enjoy as well. So that's the flexibility that we have. And then having a company that's been doing this for so long, having that backing is great too.
Sure. So tell us, who is it that taught you how to make these incredible chocolate treats, and how old were you when you started?
So for me, this is actually all self-taught. Like everything that we do here in-house are things that are self-taught. So I left my career in banking and finance about 6 years ago. I had been in finance for about 12 years, and my grandma was here visiting, and this was actually her idea. So my grandma is an amazing cook. She taught me everything everything that I know about cooking and things like that. And I guess a warning, I may get a little emotional because I recently lost my grandmother. So anytime I think about her, I reflect in that way. But, I know she's proud and she's happy where she is because she's been reunited with my grandpa. So it's good things. It's not not a bad thing. But it was her idea because when she was here visiting, we would go to different chocolate shops and things like that. And she would always say, like, this is just too sweet. Like, you guys, this is too sweet. There's just too much sugar in this chocolate. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? But of course, her palate was different, right? She was used to European style chocolates, things like that. And one day we were having dessert and she looked at me and she goes, you just need to talk to your uncle and then like buy chocolates from him. And I'm like, and I had just resigned like from work. I was just spending time with her. She was here visiting. And I looked at her and I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, your uncle. And I said, right. And she goes, just call him. You need to get some chocolates from him. So I'm like, okay. And then that's how my company started. And then how we do things here, like we have our in-house salted caramels. I come up with a wonky idea. I make it. It comes out horribly. I make it again. I watch a few more videos. I do a little bit more research, and then I make it again and again, and then I perfect it. I have people try it. I look at their reaction. I see how I can improve on it, and then I reincorporate those things and then come up with another product. It's kind of cool because you see people's reaction, and then you get to ask about that, and then you get to improve on the product. And I'm lucky in that I have, like before Corona, I had all the bellmen outside and all the people at the front desk, and basically everyone that I needed to kind of give them my, to have them try, have them be, I always call them my really happy guinea pigs because they get to try chocolate. So I'm lucky in having access to that. And that's really what I do. And it's fun because then you see people's reaction, then you ask about it, and then if you ask more than one person, because everyone's palate is different, right? So then the fun part is figuring out like, okay, what this person thinks or what this person said, and then coming to like some sort of middle ground that incorporates all that. And that's the fun part. And it's okay because you're not going to get a perfect product the first time, but that's the fun part too. Because I have a picture of the first piece of chocolate I ever made, and I think it's hilarious. And one day I'm going to blow it up and frame it in my shop because it looks so awful, but I think people need to see it.
I think it's just it details such a wonderful journey, though, because I think sometimes people have this impression that people that are in the chocolate making business or, chocolatiers, that they create something and it's perfect the first time around.
And it's not.
And it's not.
And I think too, it's just like, for me, I'm lucky in that because I love it so much. Chocolate to me just is there's so many memories tied to it. So anytime I am experiencing with it, it's bringing back those memories as well. And like from my family or from my grandmother and growing up and all those things and how it ties into that as well.
Well, tell us about some of those memories.
So my favorite time to be home is Easter. The reason for that is because the Easter candy is unbelievable. You're talking Easter eggs that are bigger than my head. Like Easter bunnies that are, and it's magical. So I was born during the Civil War, and we were in Lebanon for a few years, but then we had to flee. And when we fled, we went to live in Syria. And my grandmother would come from Lebanon to visit us. And my grandma always came with chocolate. In fact, so anytime she would come to visit us, and it was around the holidays, but also regular, just in regular times. But I remember her coming like around Easter with like Easter candy. My grandma always had chocolate in her purse, always. There's never, even to this, even when she was visiting, there was always a piece of candy or a piece of chocolate in her purse because that's just how it was. And so, and in Lebanon, traditionally, like every home that you go to, there's usually a big bowl of chocolate to treat your guests for when they come. And so when she would go visit people, and if people treated her, she never ate that piece of chocolate. If it was one piece, she put it in her purse, and then when she saw my brother, she would split it in half. It was our piece of chocolate. So anytime I'm creating things like that, that's always in the back of my mind, is having that experience with her and being able to share that. Because chocolate is love and chocolate is happiness. And I think that's the reason why I think that's because I have that so much love and happiness tied to it.
Mm-hmm. And I just have to share this with viewers. Christine really emanates that. You walk into her shop and she wants to feed you. She wants you to have that amazing chocolate experience that she is able to bless you with. And I get the sense that it ties in with your personal history with your grandmother.
Yes, and it was so much fun because we always knew like where to go for a piece of chocolate. Like we always knew she had chocolate. There was never a time when she didn't have chocolate. And I think too, part of that experience in the shop, and thank you for that, is really just like Lebanese people in general, we're all about hospitality. Arabs in general, we're just all about hospitality and feeding you and making, I mean, a guest is always, it becomes a part of the home. So for me, my shop is an extension of who I am. So when you come into my shop, you're coming to my home, and I want to treat you like you would be a guest. And so I think that's part of it too, is just that um, cultural piece where you're welcoming and you treat the guests that way.
I know I can say for myself, my personal experiences that I felt at home. And so anybody that walks in, I'm sure has that same experience too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like, so much. Thank you. By this much chocolate, don't you want to eat chocolate right away? I feel like you're walking in and there's like walls of chocolate, so it's the least I can do.
Well, given that you're talking about all this chocolate, I just have to share this with the viewers. So Christine has a menu, this incredibly great menu, color menu, so you get to see what everything looks like. If I counted correctly, perhaps I may have missed one or two, but I think I counted 53 items in your catalog. How did you come up with the items for your product line, and what is the story? Is there a story behind some of the items?
Yes, I look at, it's really people's reactions, my customers' reactions. So I mean, our first order, when I brought in things the first time, I mean, it was over 1,200 pounds of chocolate. I brought like so many different things. And it was, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and just kind of trying different things and then seeing what people like. So, and for us, people prefer our dark chocolate. Our milk chocolate is phenomenal. So if you're a milk chocolate lover, like, this is the place to come. But also, I feel a lot more people prefer dark chocolate. So I wanted to make sure I expanded that. And then in addition to that, for me, there are a couple things that are very, very important. Number one is that our product is ethically sourced, and the ingredients that we use are non-GMO, and that we don't have any high fructose corn syrup or any of that stuff. That's very, very important. Number two is kind of bridging the gap too, is like kind of highlighting some of the things that we do in Lebanon and being able to see people's experience to that as well. And so kind of having that as well is another part so like there's the walnut pistachio piece that I believe you tried and you really liked it. And that one, to me, it tastes like a traditional nougat, like a traditional Lebanese nougat, but dipped in chocolate. And there are like hints of rose water, and there's that walnut and that pistachio, and then there's this thin layer of dark chocolate all around it. Seeing people's reaction to that piece, it really makes me happy, because it's just kind of, it's home, but in a little piece. Mm-hmm. The other part is just making sure that we have what we need as far as allergies go, because I feel like, I'll tell you the story really quick. So I had a family come in, obviously before Corona, like it was a pretty big family. It was like 7 people, and they all got something except for one, and she was actually pregnant. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh, I said, are you're not eating chocolate? And she goes, I'm allergic to soy. I was like, oh my goodness. So I mean, I found a date. So I gave her a date, which doesn't have anything. It was just a date with. So I treated her to that, and that stayed with me. So immediately, like that night, I went and just searched for a bunch of soy-free products and added them to the shop, because I just didn't like the fact that one person in this group couldn't partake, and everyone was eating and having fun, and she couldn't. So that's important to me, is to make sure that regardless of what your allergies are, and of course we're not going to hit every single thing depending on how severe the allergy is, but you can always find what you need at the shop, whether it's gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever XYZ, whatever thing you're avoiding. We added sugar-free stuff, and we'll be expanding on that as well. So I think that, to give people that option. I just always try to make sure that if you need something, it's here at the shop.
I think that ties back into this desire to be hospitable and really caring for the people that come into your shop. That's so incredible.
It's important, right? Like and I think people appreciate that, because if you're genuine about how you treat people, and it comes back to hospitality, like being able to feed everyone. We have to feed everyone. We have to be able to feed you all. We can't avoid one. It doesn't work.
So you did touch upon the phrase ethically sourced. And I know for me that's important as well, but can you share with our viewers, for those individuals that are not familiar with what that means, and why is that something that consumers should be looking for? Why should that be important to them?
I think if you love chocolate, then you want ethically sourced chocolate. Like if you love chocolate, it is very, very important because we want to be able to enjoy chocolates for many years to come. And for us, our chocolate, so we have bars that are ethically sourced from different places, and I look for certain bar makers that are bean to bar, some that are smaller, some that are bigger, some that have like some really unique flavors. And then our stuff is all made using Calabo chocolate, and that includes our drinking chocolate as well as the chocolate that we make here in house. And Calabo is responsible for the Horizon project. So I'll give you a little bit of information about the Horizon project and kind of what that entails. And it's a 3-point, I guess, synopsis of what it is. So the first thing is prospering farmers. And what that means is supporting farmers, the professionalization and long-term viability. There are people that own these lands that have no idea, what chocolate even tastes like. So when it's a commercial, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but when it's done commercially and it's done on a large scale, those people that actually own the land get lost in the mix. And unfortunately, that's just the world that we live in, right? So the Horizon Project ensures that, through the development of a farm business plan and enabling them, the farmers to have access to farm services, tools, and financing and things like that, is to kind of make sure that they're supporting them in the long term. So that's number one. Number two, community. So enabling child-centric community structure by supporting community action plans to prevent child labor and by supporting projects that promote women's empowerment and income generations. So it just ensures that no child labor is ever involved in any of the chocolate that we're using to make, any of the couverture that we use to make our chocolate. And I think that's really important. I mean, if you really think about it, so these kids, and we've talked about this, is that they've never had chocolate before. So I don't have any kids, but I like to think of it this way. When you're giving your child a piece of chocolate and then seeing their reaction to it, knowing that this product was made by a child their age, a child that's never, not the actual final product, but the things that were used for that product were made by a child their age who's never had chocolate before. That should be enough to stop every single person to be like, okay, is this ethically sourced? And I think all chocolate lovers should move towards that ethically sourced model and making sure, it takes reading your label. And there are different levels, like our Horizon project is going to be slightly different than other things out there, but there are those little things that are better than just straight commercial chocolate. And let's face it, commercial chocolate doesn't taste as good as those small batch ones. And that's really what you want to support. So that's number two. And then number three, the environment, which without an environment, we've got nothing, right? So so they're committing to a forest and carbon positive cocoa supply chain by planting cocoa and non-cocoa trees. So it promotes clean energy devices such as cook stoves and solar systems, providing traceability to farm boundaries, and ensures that the cacao is not coming from deforested or protected areas, and it increasing community ownership of the deforestation challenges. So making sure that, these aren't coming from places that we shouldn't be touching, because let's face it, we've got places like the Amazon, like these are the Earth's lungs. We need to, how important are our lungs, right? And the Earth's lungs is the rainforest. So we need to be able to be cognizant of that and making sure that what we're taking out is not something that's going to harm the planet. And I think that's very important. So those are the things that the Horizon project covers, kind of just a few pieces of each part.
Sure. I know a lot of people probably think that being able to make your own chocolate items and having your own chocolate shop is like the dream come true. And I know it is, but it's just like any other business, right? In that there are different types of challenges that you face. What kind of challenges have you faced, and how is it that you've worked to overcome them?
Business challenge. I think that question has several different things, like pre-Rona, past-Rona, all of those things. I think every business owner, you go in and you open a business and you think that the second you turn your open sign on, everyone's going to stand outside because you have an amazing product and you've just spent a lot of money and you're going to get it back in the next week, and you already know what your average sales are going to be, right? Every one of us. I bet every single business owner, that was their thought process. So that's challenge number one, is getting over your expectations, because it's not that thing where you turn on the open sign and everything comes through. So, I mean, I think the first thing was our first location was not a heavily retail location, and it was good and bad. It was good that a friend of mine owned the space, and he was okay with me using it to kind of start this idea. And so, and we, you know, we started it there knowing full well that we will eventually have to move it. So it was a good starting point for me. It was a little safe. But obviously that comes with its own set of challenges, because then I had to find the location that had actual more foot traffic. So number one, I mean, just kind of finding and locating the right location. And then really just picking yourself up off the floor anytime you get handed, you know, something, or anytime there are challenges, and then going forward. And I think when you love what you're doing, if you truly love what you're doing, then you do that time and time again. I mean, you will pick yourself back up and then just keep going. I mean, we had location challenges. There was a time when our wholesalers sent me an order. I mean, it was 300 kilograms of chocolate, so over 700, or about 700 pounds of chocolate. So, and it was in the air, and the FDA hadn't had any information about it. So it literally, they froze it like midair. They're like, what is this? Like, what are all these things? And so now I'm having to scramble to figure out, you know, and then FDA put a hold on it. So it's things like this when you're importing a product, making sure you have the right people in place that can get things done correctly. You know, anticipating that, you know, your sales might not be what you need. Anticipating the fact that things always go over budget. You think that you have a budget in mind, and then they go over budget. So that's been a challenge. And then most recently, I mean, just kind of getting through the pandemic. I think any business owner, like we all try to, I was taught, and my dad teaches us this all the time, is that you always put the bad before the good when you're starting a project, because you always have to anticipate worst case scenario and then be prepared for worst case scenario, and then be, you know, pleasantly surprised. But I don't think, no matter who it is, no one ever plans for a pandemic. I will now, moving forward, I'll plan for a pandemic. But I think that was, you know, was really hard to overcome too. And just, I feel so blessed to still be here, considering all the challenges. You know, I mean, we were closed for 8 or 9 months last year. Wow. So that was very challenging. So I think that, and just, you know, keep going. If it's what you love to do, keep going. If it's giving you that joy, because it will. Even if it's a bad situation all around, you're still getting that internal happiness of like, this is my dream and I'm building towards something. Keep going.
That ties in with something I was going to ask you earlier, because I know you talked about having left your job, your career in finance. And I know that this was, you know, your grandmother had helped to motivate you, in essence, to move in this direction. What was the real key factor, you know, that prompted you to really take that leap?
So I have, it's slightly personal, but I'm more than happy to share. I have MS, but in addition to MS, I had a really rare neurological disease where I ended up being, I lost my ability to walk back in 2009. This disease attacks your spinal cord. So the combination of those things always have me, were in the back of my mind. And I always, in the back of my mind, I said, you know, I need to build something that if God forbid, my disease comes back, or if my MS, because my MS was out of control for a long time, if my MS does, you know, stay out of control, I need something that's going to be able to protect me. So, and my business is important for many reasons, but it's also my plan for the future, so that if something does happen to me, then my stores are functioning as they should. And I think that's why I'm putting so much time into building them as well, because it's something that I want to have for the long term. So that's really the other part, and that's what motivated me. And my grandma was visiting, so it was kind of perfect timing to kind of take a step back and think about what my next steps are going to be, because I felt that I had done the corporate world for a lot longer than I had wanted to anyway. And it just kind of all came together. And I think, you know, when the universe puts you on the right path, and when, you know, puts you on where you're supposed to be, you just kind of, everything starts falling into place. Things that you never thought they would just kind of start falling into place. Yeah.
Well, I know from what I've witnessed and experienced with you, you are certainly in the right place. You certainly, your shop seems to be a place of comfort for a number of people. And so that kind of leads me into talking about, or asking my next question in regards to what kind of legacy or what kind of impact would you like Azar Indulgences to have on your community and the customers that come through your door?
I think for me, number one, I feel like this store bridges the world that I come from and the world that I'm in now. And it kind of helps to combat some of those misconceptions about that part of the world and Lebanon specifically. So for me, it's a way to just really highlight the beauty of the place that I come from. And I guess the legacy for this shop is, chocolate is love, and kindness and all things encompassing that. And that does include the ethically sourced piece of it. That does include that ensuring that everyone is able to get their allergy restrictions addressed, that that everyone feels welcome when they come in. And I think that's the one thing, the legacy of Leaving Behind, is that people feel loved, and then they see that bridge of from where I come from and where I am today.
I think that this has been an incredible vehicle for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love hearing that. See, that makes me so happy. Thank you. I mean, there are people that just come just to hang out for a few minutes, like during the day. They grab their stuff, but it's like that, people that work in the office building, that 10 minutes of just kind of being here and getting their drinking chocolate and just soaking up a little bit of calm. And then they kind of go on their way, and it helps, just to kind of break down that day.
Yeah. So Christine, as our interview time comes to an end, what is it that you would like to leave with our viewers? What is it that you want them to take away from our time together?
Eat ethically sourced chocolate. I think that's the most important thing, really, truly. Like, love chocolate, but love it enough to enjoy it responsibly and ensure that we have it for many, many, many generations to come. And that, because it is love, making sure that from the very beginning to the finished product, there's love all the way through. Because there's something magical. I know when I'm stressed out, sometimes I just grab a piece of chocolate, and then when that chocolate melts and you just kind of stop, and there is that magic with it, and then I think it's beautiful. And I want to make sure, for me, it's important that the process is beautiful from beginning to end.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you are out there bringing beauty into this world. Thank you so much for your time and for what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience. And I appreciate you doing this. And, I look forward to many, many more talks about chocolate.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome.